I, Gregor Robertson, do.
Prime Minister Mark Carney has tapped former Vancouver Mayor Gregor Robertson and new Vancouver Fraserview South Burnaby MP to help address the country's housing crisis. It's a decision that has raised some eyebrows, in part because of rising housing costs in Vancouver while Robertson was mayor.
All right, I did an interview on what I thought about Gregor Robertson, the former Vancouver mayor, being appointed as Canada's housing minister. This was a conservative news outlet, True North Media. They wanted to get my take on it. So critics fear Carney's housing minister will nationalize Vancouver's housing crisis. Prime Minister Mark Carney's appointment of former Vancouver Mayor Gregor Robertson as Canada's new minister has sparked fears he may implement the same disastrous housing policies nationally that contributed to Vancouver's affordability crisis. Vancouver realtor Jay Coupar called Robertson in an interview with True North a complete failure on all fronts. I said here, when I first saw that he was appointed, I thought it was a joke. He's probably the worst mayor ever on record, second only to Kennedy Stewart. I said he was a complete abysmal failure on all fronts. If you recall, Gregor said he was going to solve homelessness. How did that work out for you? When he entered office, the average price of a home in Vancouver was $484,000, but reached $1,042,000 by the time he left. That would be a 115% increase. The average home price has since increased over $1.2 million as of April 2025. So I was quoted here, this is the guy who pushed purpose-built rentals instead of ownership. If this sounds familiar, it's because it's the same thing David Eby and the NDP are doing today. That's been my argument. They're waving the white flag on home ownership. Let's have everyone just be a renter. And I've said for years, you guys who have been following my channel here, renting in Vancouver long-term is absolute financial suicide. The city's homeless population also increased from 1,576 in 2008 to 2,181 in 2018. Another concern of Cooper's was Robertson's heavy reliance on the use of modular homes, which he sees as a band-aid solution, and I do. Gregor Robertson spearheaded these modular homes back when he was in office here. Now Carney sees this as the solution to affordability. Carney's he was former the chair of Brookfield Asset Management, which made a big investment in modular homes back in 2021. They bought a company called Modular. So of course his insider buddies, they all stand to profit from this. I said here, there's certain things the government does well, and there are other things that are best left to the private sector. I also talk here about how everything's pivoted now away from stratified condos to purpose-built rental. And I welcome we need more rentals here, but it is coming at the expense of stratified condos. And I think that will drive up home prices going forward. Robertson told reporters this week that he didn't think housing prices need to come down. We need to deliver more supply and make sure the market is stable. Goes on to talk about Carney's promise, shaping the future of home building in Canada with prefabricated and modular homes, which of course he's going to allocate $25 billion of taxpayer dollars for. Socialism 101. It's capitalism for us, but socialism for everyone else. All his insider buddies he's going to give big contracts to. Modular homes have been facing major scrutiny for their difficulty to ensure lack of insulation in winter months, and that lenders don't want to finance such properties because of their rapidly depreciating value. There is also speculation, what did I tell you guys, that the push for modular homes would benefit Carney's former company, Brookfield Asset Management, which purchased a modular home company for $5 billion in 2021. And I argued here, Canadians should be owning real estate, not stuck paying someone else's mortgage. And that's another point here. These modular homes, they are not going to be for sale. They're going to be for rent. So moving on here, this is an article I did back in 2024. BC's NDP announcing 2,600 homes. And I said here that they're glorified rentals. Again, it's the common thread here, whether it's Trudeau or Carney or David Eby or Gregor Robertson. They want you to rent. They want you to work and rent from the government. Premier Eby's latest announcement has drawn mixed reaction, with some realtors expressing doubt about whether the plan is to offer glorified rentals. In an interview with True North, Vancouver realtor Jay Coupar raised concerns about the pricing and long-term value of 99-year leasehold homes being billed as the home ownership dream here. And I did a short video on that as well. So under this scheme, the BC government is going to subsidize 40% of the home's cost, with the stipulation that buyers pay back the financing upon resale of the property or after 25 years of ownership in the form of a second mortgage. This will be done in partnership with the MST First Nations. Here's the kicker here. The government is pricing one-bedroom units in the development at $850,000. Subsidies are going to bring the cost down to $510,000. Of course, it's going to be heavily taxpayer subsidized. 2 bedrooms priced at $1.3 million, 3 bedrooms at $1.5 before subsidies. So I said here, I wouldn't pay those prices. You can get a good quality freehold unit, a 1-bedroom in Falls Creek for mid 700s, brand new. Unless you're getting a 50% discount, it's not worth it. The only leasehold, so the only leasehold I've ever sold was for, this was the CEO of Verizon Communications over in the US, and he wanted to buy a place for his son in UBC. And of course, everything's leasehold around there. And I educated him about the downsides and the pitfalls of leaseholds because I'm not a big leasehold guy. I think you should own freehold. You own the dirt. That's what appreciates. In this case, the guy didn't care. It wasn't an investment. It was an investment in his son to go to UBC. That's the only leasehold deal I've ever done. One of the main concerns is the nature of the leasehold agreements. So buyers have ownership of the building, but not the land it sits on. The land remains under First Nations ownership for the 99-year lease period. So generally speaking, I steer clients away from leaseholds unless it's a very unique situation. Leaseholds appreciate more slowly than freehold properties, leading to what Coupar calls a glorified rental rather than a long-term investment. And I stand by that. Securing mortgages for leaseholds can be difficult. You're going to need usually 35% down. Not many banks will finance it. I think some credit unions, Coast Capital might do it. But you're going to need a larger down payment. And honestly, it is more of a glorified rental because you want to own freehold. You want to own the dirt. That's what appreciates over time. I also talk about here in this article about some comparisons have been drawn to Singapore's housing model, where many residents lease their homes. And this is, I guess, the solution a lot of people think. And a lot of the NDP supporters have pointed to Singapore as an example of how the government can build affordable housing. Now, it's important to understand, I just had, and it says in the article here, I had a client return from Singapore and he said housing is insanely expensive, much more than in Vancouver. But what happens in Singapore is probably around 90% of people, they lease their homes. And it's only the ultra wealthy that can actually afford these freehold homes. So it is not a silver bullet for affordable housing. So yeah, that's my take. Again, not a big proponent of leaseholds, but the government, the Liberals, the NDP, they don't want you to own anything. They don't want you to own your home or start a business. They want you to be dependent on them. They want you to be working for the government, renting for the government. That's what they want. It's socialism 101 because now you're completely dependent on them for everything. And I'm of the opinion Canadians should own their homes, but leave it in the comments. Maybe you guys think that we should just wave the white flag on owning a home in Vancouver and everyone's just going to be a renter, I guess. Let me know what you think. I'm Jay Coupar. Feel free to comment below or subscribe. See you in the next video.